Welcome. This video is to demonstrate the installation for Western Window Systems Series 9500 bottom load bifold door. Begin by unpacking your frame kit. The kit will have a head assembly, a threshold assembly, and 2 jamb assemblies. This video will demonstrate the installation of a 4-panel door. Your configuration may vary. Inspect the rough opening carefully to ensure it has been properly prepared to accept the configuration size you are installing. Check to make sure that the flash is in place and applied in accordance with AAMA standards. Next, check the floor to see that it is flat and level. If the floor varies more than 1/16 inch per foot or a total of 1/4 inch over the entire width of the opening, it must be corrected before proceeding. This product is a bottom load door, and continuous support at the threshold is required. Begin by laying the frame pieces on the ground. Insert the bottom carrier hardware into the threshold channel with the intermediate carrier in the center. Insert the bottom pivot carriers with the adjustment screw facing toward the center of the frame. Apply sealant on all the joints. Then attach with frame assembly screws. Set the frame in the opening to mark a placement of the threshold. After the frame is assembled, lay a bead of sealant under the threshold and both jambs, 1/2 inch to the exterior side of the frame's interior. Set the frame in the opening and square it using temporary shims. Level the threshold as required with shims. Pump sealant into the threshold anchor holes. Anchor the threshold with number 10 screws. Continue to anchor head and jambs with number 10 screws, shimming as necessary to keep frame plumb and square. When the threshold is securely anchored, pump sealant into jamb and header mounting holes to ensure penetrations are sealed completely. Shim entire frame and attach with screws. To begin assembling the door, locate the remainder of the hardware and organize it in the same manner it will be assembled. Check for correct orientation and positioning. Starting from the exterior side of the frame with passive panels, insert the top intermediate carrier into the head through the cutouts at the pivot point. Next, insert the top pivot carrier into the head. On the active panel side of the frame, insert the other top pivot carrier. Finally, fasten the wall mid-pivot on each jamb. When all of the hardware is in place, screw the housing down with 1-inch screws. Attach the cover plates with 3/8 screws on each end. To mount the wall mid-pivot, drill a 3/4 inch hole through the mounting hole in the jambs and insert the mounting brackets using finished screws. Thoroughly clean the tracks and lubricate the head and threshold with silicone spray. The door will have one active panel that will operate separate of the other panels. The other panels are referred to as passive panels. Organize door panels alphabetically from left to right from the exterior opening. Check for orientation and swing direction. Dry fit the panels in the frame to check alignment. Starting with panel A, set the panel at a 90-degree angle to the frame supporting it with a block or a similar tool at the bottom. Apply the top hinge onto the top pivot carrier. Next, slide the middle hinge onto the mid-pivot carrier and insert into the mounting bracket. Attach with 1/2 inch screws. Place the hinge on the bottom pivot carrier, remove the screws from the bottom hinge, and attach the hinge to the panel using the same screws. Set the last panel 90 degrees to the frame, supporting it at the bottom. Using the same process, attach the top pivot carrier, mid-pivot, and bottom pivot carrier. To begin installing the remainder of the panels, the passive panel should be open 90 degrees to the opening. Remove the tape covering the hinges. Move the next panel parallel to the installed panel and line up the hinges to the screws. Starting at the center hinge, remove the screws. Then move the hinge into place and replace screws. Do the same at the top and bottom hinges. From the inside of the just installed panel, attach the center hinge plate of the intermediate carriers to the panel at both the top and bottom. Next, move the final panel into place parallel to the other panels. After removing the tape over the hinges and starting with the bottom hinge, remove the screws from the panel. Attach the hinge plates using the screws. Attach the center hinge plate and the top hinge plate the same way. Once all of the panels are attached, move panels to a closed position. With a 9/16 inch wrench and a small screwdriver, release the lock pin and rotate the nut on the hinge, keeping the weather stripping in contact with the cell. Rotate slightly until pin locks are back into place. Next, adjust for plumb by rotating the screw in the track on the bottom pivot carrier. Adjust the door panels until they operate smoothly and gaps are even. Apply the foam strips around 3 hinges on each panel. Locate the magnets. Using the magnet housing, mark the placement for the magnets on the 2 outer panels. Make sure they are in identical positions on each panel. Pre-drill the holes. Assemble the magnets into the housing, then attach to each panel. Once the final adjustments are done, caulk the perimeter frame to the flashing material. When closing the door, do not drag the panels to the closed position. Instead, move each panel in sequence to the closed position and latch. Congratulations! You've installed the Western Window System Series 9500 bottom load bifold door.